So you want to be a man in the 21st century? Nah, yeah. You have to be aggressive, domineering, and arrogant. I know this works because, you know, that is what I did to make the most beautiful woman in LA fall in love with me. Let's get serious for a second. In today's absolutely stupid internet culture, certain celebrities are promoting what they term alpha male. But what is an alpha male? Well, men that are cold, loud, disrespectful, and spend tons of time in the gym because they want to be able to punch you in the nose to show they're in charge. These braggarts in celestial man-child poodles sometimes refer to themselves as a lone wolf, apex predator, or sigma. The goal is to make you believe that their behaviors are the truth of nature, science, or human history. But it is not, trust me. In fact, if you lived in ancient Greece with the attributes we often call alpha today, you'd be called idiots, which is where we derive the word idiot. So how did we, people of the 21st century, with our 3000 IQ, start to admire idiots? Wer reitet uns in diese Scheiße? Well, some bro-flake imbeciles deceived, especially young men, that alpha males have always been part of human history, that powerful people in ancient societies were alphas, and that even in the animal kingdom, as in chimpanzee and wolves, leaders were alphas. In this video, I'll prove to you that every single one of these claims is as true as saying Kevin Hart has what it takes to play in the NBA. In his 1999 book, Hierarchy in the Forest, American anthropologist Christopher Boehm wrote that our ancestors practiced what he called reverse dominance. But what is reverse dominance? Well, reverse dominance means that up until the recent century, the most powerful people in human societies were ordinary, weak people. Yeah, people like you. But what about the bullies or alphas among our ancestors? Well, they usually die, untimely. But why? Very simple. Imagine you were alive 20,000 years ago. For your tribe to survive, the greatest skill you needed was cooperation. To protect yourself and everyone from this dude, everybody needed to cooperate. To hunt this bro, we must cooperate. To locate water during the dry season, find edible fruits, or to detect and apply medicinal leaves. We all have to be on the same page, or we perish. Then someone might say, oh, okay, but how did people become leaders 20,000 years ago? What about people who were very popular? What about those who can, what about those who could date 75 Instagram girls at once? Oh, okay, there wasn't Instagram 20,000 years ago. But you get the idea. How did people gain influence thousands of years ago? Well, you would go out to hunt, come back with a huge animal, and share it with everyone. You would learn and understand the terrain, know where this bastard lives, and where this idiot used to drink water. Then pass that information to everyone, so that everyone can avoid those places. You would practice how to fight and become strong, not because you want to bully your tribesmen like Andrew Tate of the 21st century, but because you want to defend your tribe against the enemy tribes. You would be the guy who settles conflicts, feeds the hungry, and creates tools for everyone to hunt. That was how to become a leader. That was how to be an alpha. And that was how to date Taylor Swift 15,000 years ago. This girl is beautiful. Can somebody send me her WhatsApp number, please? I will give all the money I make on YouTube to this girl. Please tell her to date me. Now let me ask you a question. Do any of the things I just mentioned sound like what an alpha in 2026 wants to do? No. An alpha in our day is someone who dominates and bullies everyone. Huh? But what's wrong with that? What if you were like Andrew Tate in 10,000 BCE? Well, you would die very fast. Very, very quickly. But why? Listen, your tribesmen would wake up while you were asleep and abandon you in a bush. Then you would be killed by this big brother. If your tribesmen thought that abandoning you might not work, they would send you to heaven by themselves. That's what Christopher Boehm called reverse dominance, and that is why the concept of a toxic alpha cannot be traced to our ancestors. In his seminal work, The Nicomachean Ethics, my big uncle, and the king of kings of Greek philosophy, Aristotle, wrote about what he called megalopsychos. But what is megalopsychos, you may ask? Well, Megalopsychus was the ideal man, the real man, the honorable man. According to Brother Stottle, to be a real man is to have a high, rightful opinion of yourself. To be a real man is to avoid the extremes of excessive vanity or undue humility. Yes, Mr. Aristotle taught that. You shouldn't be like a sheep that is being taken for granted by everyone. Aristotle called this micropsychos. But you should also not be like an arrogant lion that roars and hunts everyone. This is what Greeks call chaunos. Aristotle preached moderation and virtues. This is in line with the Delphic maxim of miden agan, as inscribed at the Temple of Apollo, meaning nothing in excess. In Greek philosophy, the alpha archetype, someone who is loud, rude, domineering, and prioritizes his own ego over the group, was called a hubristic man, and in Greek tragedy and philosophy, that man always ends up destroyed. In fact, in the 5th century BCE Athenian politics, if you were perceived to be too domineering, rude, or seeking too much power, citizens would vote to kick you out of the city for 1 decade. This was a legal process called ostracism. From Confucianism, which influenced ancient China's philosophy, to ancient India, Egypt, and most other old civilizations, the strong man is the man who protects the weak. Romans called this Elios. But what do all these mean? Well, to be strong is not to be alpha. To be strong is to care, to protect, and to lead. Then, someone might say, oh, okay, but what about the greatest and most famous alphas throughout history? What about Napoleon Bonaparte, who kicked everyone's asses? What about Alexander the Great, who almost conquered the world? What about my grandfather, who, you know what he did, don't you? Now, this is where many young people might be confused. You see, while all these men, and many more like them throughout history, go everywhere fighting whoever took their girlfriends, they almost always never bully the weak in their tribes. For example, an average Frenchman loved Napoleon. Most Macedonians would die for Alexander the Great, and even Hitler was admired by most Germans. Therefore, historical warriors couldn't be named alpha because if they behaved like the 21st century alphas, they would die without winning a single war. Now, let's try to answer probably the most important question of this video, which is if our ancestors throughout history have disdain for alphas, why do the internet generation of the 21st century worship alphas? In 1947, a Swiss animal behaviorist, Rudolf Schenkel, studied a group of wolves at the Basel Zoo. Observing these locked-up losers, Schenkel noticed that they were in constant battle for dominance. And eventually the strongest among them, that is, the loud, arrogant wolves, tend to become the leader. Uncle Schenkel named this leader alpha animal, alpha male, or alpha female. This was the origin of our modern understanding of the terms alpha male and alpha female. After Schenkel's studies were published, every impotent, stunted, vapid, meathead, and obnoxious man who had been looking for an excuse to be rude now has that excuse. You know I'm an alpha? Oh, okay, but what does that mean? It means I can behave like animals. Ooh. I mean, if the rude, domineering, and arrogant wolves become the leaders of wolves, isn't it reasonable that the same will happen among humans? In 1970, American biologist L. David Mech published a book titled The Wolf: Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species. Mech, just like Schenkel, used the word alpha to describe the violent leader of the wolves. But there was a problem. You see, in both Schenkel and Mech's studies, the wolves were in captivity, in zoos. Because the wolves were outside their natural habitat, they were anxious and needed to fight for survival and dominance. This is the same thing that would happen if you put 10 human beings in a room, but in their natural homes. In the wild, wolf packs are families. The alpha is Quasi, the dad. There is no violent hierarchy, there is only parental guidance. Researchers, including Schenkel and Mech, later found out that wolves don't behave like idiots, but it was too late. By the time primatologist Frans de Waal wrote Chimpanzee Politics in 1982, the idiots who are looking for the proof of alpha in nature they had made up their minds to find it anywhere they could. People blatantly ignored de Waal's actual findings, which are that the most successful chimpanzees weren't the biggest bullies. Just like in human societies, most successful chimps were the peacemakers, the guy who shared food and groomed others. In fact, in the kingdom of chimps, according to Frans de Waal, alphas were usually overthrown and killed, just as it has always happened in ancient human civilizations. The best way to understand human society is to study the ancient phalanx military formation, or modern soccer teams. In both the phalanx and soccer team, the most successful person isn't the guy who wants to dominate, rule, and bully everyone. What do you think would happen to Lionel Messi if he was so arrogant that every one of his teammates hates him? What do you think would have happened to my childhood friend, Alexander the Great, if he had fought alone? But what do all these mean? Well, even till today, among humans, the real, lasting success goes to people who are kind, supportive, and generous. This doesn't mean you must be weak. It only means you can't go far if you use your strength to bully people all the time. Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy, and other shitty dark triad personality traits are good to make you feel like you are progressing, but they almost always end you in one place, and that is the grave, the early grave. Which is why my beautiful ex-wife always says, Hochmut kommt vor dem Fall. Thanks for watching.